why wouldn't better quarterbacks be developed now
Yes.
than they were 15, 20, 30 years ago? There's not going to be a quarterback shortage. That's laughable.
By the way, there's two good trends for the NFL. One, to your point, and you're absolutely right, there's 15-year-old kids now that are miles ahead of where Brady were. That's number one. And secondly, because of nutrition standards and less hitting, they're lasting longer. So Goff could play for 18 years, not your customary 12 to 13. So those two trends guarantee great quarterback back play for years to come. I want to go to this, though. There's a story now. I talked about it yesterday. I had it sourced, and it came out today with Ian Rappaport, that McCarthy and Rodgers, it was never an ideal fit. It's beyond frosty now. And I was thinking about this, Peter. Aaron Rodgers is watching Trubisky. He's watching Goff. He's watching Mahomes the last 36, 48 hours. And he's thinking to himself, God, we struggled to get 2 touchdowns against Buffalo. Some marriages they're perfect fits. Some relationships just aren't, but you make them work. Couldn't I argue Aaron deserves his Matt Nagy? It's time for a breakup there.
I said that on Monday in my column, that it just feels like it's headed toward a new coach for the Packers in January. And I think it probably is time. It just isn't working well in Green Bay. I'm not killing Mike McCarthy over this. It just feels like it's time in Green Bay to make a change.
You were the best team in football I've seen is the Saints. I don't think the Rams can go there again and win. I don't think anybody in the NFC can go to New Orleans and win. They're efficient plus dynamic. You actually sat in on the Saints meeting the night before the Eagles game. That's one of my dreams. I sat in a draft room this year. That was one of my dreams. What do you sense? What did you feel all your years covering sitting in that Saints room?
My biggest takeaway from that is that I've done a lot of stories where I'm behind the curtain. I've been in 9 draft rooms on draft days. I spent a week with an officiating crew in 2013 and saw everything. I spent a week with Carson Palmer in 2015 and saw everything. I've done a lot of these stories. But the one thing that I had never done before is sat with a team the night before the game while a quarterback and a coach basically bounce ideas off each other. Like, here's what we're going to do tomorrow. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? That was enlightening, and it showed me that Sean Payton is not an autocratic guy. You would think that a coach of his standing in the NFL with that team, he'd be saying, okay, guys, here's what we're doing. The reason it works so well in New Orleans is that Drew Brees gave Sean Payton about 46 plays the night before the game and says, here's what I like. And Peyton put a dot next to him on his game plan, that big, huge sheet you see Peyton carrying.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many he used, but those are the ones he was going to go into the next day to use. And the final thing that I would say about it is, at times I felt like I was watching John Nash in A Beautiful Mind. I watched the walkthrough in a ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in the French Quarter. And in the walkthrough, one of the plays that Sean Payton calls out, Colin, here's what you saw. An offensive line with 5 guys on it, 3 receivers here, 3 receivers here, no quarterback, no running back, nobody in the backfield at all. And, signals being called, and all of a sudden Taysom Hill comes back and he stands and he gets the snap. But I said, that's the darndest thing I ever saw. No quarterback, no running back, no wildcat, no empty backfield. I'm talking a total empty backfield. No quarterback. And so those are the kind of ideas that the Saints just cycle through. And that's one of the reasons why the Saints are so good on offense. They're so confident to do things in different ways.
Well, I've always said this, that you can tell the influence of somebody like Jim Harbaugh. He, not only because Michigan's better, but what happened to the Niners immediately after he left. Don't judge somebody by what they do when they arrive somewhere, but what do they leave? I watched the Philadelphia Eagles offense this year, And then I watched the Colts offense. And I'm not so sure Frank Reich isn't the coach of the year in the NFL in Indianapolis. You know Frank. There was talk 2 years ago that he was the next great coach in the NFL. I'm blown away by the guy. Give me some insight here. Are you surprised at all how much he's clicked?
Here's the reason why that marriage is working so well, Colin. When Frank Reich interviewed for this job, one of the things that he did was he never asked Chris Ballard or Jim Irsay, hey, what about Andrew Luck? What kind of shape is he in? And one of the reasons that he didn't do that, he didn't know when he took the job whether Andrew Luck was going to be okay for this year. He didn't know. And the reason is because Frank Reich thinks, I'm going to get one of these 32 head coaching jobs and I'm going to win. And I want Andrew Luck. I want him desperately. But if Andrew Luck's not there, I'm going to find a quarterback and we're going to win with him. And it's just the way he thinks. That he believes that he knows enough and knows how to connect with players and knows what to do in terms of scheme that he can win. And so that's why, and of course, I don't mean for anybody to understand, well, he didn't care about Luck. Of course he cared. But his whole thought was, no matter who the quarterback is, we're going to win here. And I think he's been a great partner to Chris Ballard, the general manager, who basically this year, with so many great players in the draft, he picked a guard. Everybody's screaming at him, what in the world are you doing picking a guard? But he picked a guard. The guard was really good. And in the last 5 sacks, this rebuilt offensive line has allowed 0 sacks.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I agree with you. It was a really good pick by the Colts.
All right, Peter King, great stuff. NBC Sports joining us today. Quickly, we appreciate it. Thank you, Peter.
All right, Colin.
I go back to that Rams-Chiefs game last night, is that, I was on Twitter last night. It was one of those dozen games a year where I'm on Twitter and I have kind of random thoughts. Everybody is seeking perfection. Go to the 10 biggest games of your life. None of them were perfect. There were controversial calls. There's a weird coaching move. A superstar does something dumb. You pick the sport. You guys, sports are better when paint spilled. Sports is about arguing. Sports is about, I'm a professional arguer. And last night, we could argue for hours about that game. The calls, McVay, Tyreek Hill, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, why'd you do that? The officiating.